In this video, we'll be exploring 5 of the most infamous killers in the state of Pennsylvania. I have lived here all of my life, and I've never heard of some of these people. It's scary to think that you could be living right next door to a killer. Hello and welcome. My name is Janine, and you're watching Now You Know. First on our list is Gary Heidnik. Gary was born in Cleveland, Ohio, but moved to Pennsylvania while serving in the military. During that time, he started displaying symptoms of mental illness, and he was transferred to a military hospital in Philadelphia. It is there where he was diagnosed with a personality disorder, causing him to be honorably discharged from service. In 1978, Gary signed out his then-girlfriend's sister from the Penn Township Mental Institution for a day of leave. He took the young girl to his home, where he held her captive in his basement. When the girl was found, Gary was charged with kidnapping, rape, unlawful restraint, false imprisonment, involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, and interfering with the custody of a committed person. For this crime, Gary spent 3 years in a mental institution before being released in April of 1983. Between 1986 and 1987, Gary abducted 4 women he held captive in his basement: Josephine Rivera, Sandra Lindsay, Lisa Thomas, and Deborah Dudley. The women were raped, beaten, and tortured on a regular basis. One of the women, Sandra Lindsay, had died from the abuse. It was reported that Gary dismembered her and fed her to his captives. Gary would apply electric shock to the women as a form of torture. He would have the women climb into a hole in the floor and fill it with water, and he would then use a stripped extension cord to apply electrical current to the chains that bound them together. Sadly, Deborah Dudley did not survive this torture. Upon her death, he took her body to the Pine Barrens in New Jersey for disposal. In January of 1987, Gary abducted another woman, Jacqueline Askins. She was 18 years old at the time. Askins recounted that Gary would use duct tape to bound their mouths, and he would stab them in the ears with a screwdriver. Then in March of 1987, Gary, with the help of Josephina Rivera, abducted his last victim, Agnes Adams. By now, Josephina had gained trust from Gary, and the following day she requested he take her to visit her family. He took her to the gas station and told her he would wait for her there. She immediately went to her boyfriend's house, and he called the police. Gary was arrested moments later. Once arrested, he attempted to hang himself in his cell, but failed to succeed. He was convicted and sentenced to death on July 1st, 1988, and again attempted suicide by overdosing. He failed again. In the years following, multiple attempts were made by his daughter and his ex-wife to stop the execution, but eventually it was carried out via lethal injection on July 3rd, 1999. If you would like to see a full, detailed video on Gary Heidnik and his victims, let me know in the comments below. While there, please do me a favor and help out the channel by hitting the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much. Second on our list of Pennsylvania killers would be Charles Carl Roberts IV. Roberts resided in Georgetown, Pennsylvania, with his wife and 3 children. At night, he was a milk truck driver. He was a normal, hard-working family man. To this day, no one knows or understands why he did what he did. On October 2nd, 2006, Roberts and his wife walked their children to the bus stop around 8:45 in the morning. Roberts' wife then went to run errands, and Roberts himself went home. While there, he set out suicide notes, one for his wife and each of his children. At approximately 9:51 a.m., Roberts armed himself with a 9mm handgun, 12-gauge shotgun, a .30-06 bolt-action rifle, about 300 rounds of ammo, black powder, a stun gun, 2 knives, and a toolbox containing a hammer, hacksaws, pliers, wire, screws, bolts, and tape. He entered West Nickel Mines School and took everyone inside hostage. Over the next 40 minutes, he released 15 male students, along with a pregnant woman and 3 parents with infants. 10 female hostages remained, their ages ranging from 6 to 13 years old. Police were called around 10:36 a.m. First responders arrived 9 minutes later. Police attempted to communicate with Roberts, and he responded that if they didn't back off, he would start to execute the hostages. Seconds later, they heard shots, and police broke into the windows. Roberts instantly killed 3 of the children and himself. 2 of his victims died the following morning, and 5 of the survivors were all in critical condition, but did survive. Roberts' wife didn't discover the suicide note until around 11 a.m., but by then it was too late. The notes indicated that Roberts had molested 2 of his family members when he himself was an adolescent. He confessed that he was daydreaming about doing it again. The 2 family members he named in his notes deny anything like that has ever happened. It would make sense that he would want to end his own life out of fear of molesting again. It doesn't make sense as to why he decided to take it out on 10 female students of a small Amish community. Third on our list for the state of Pennsylvania would be Mark Spotz. On January 31st, 1995, Mark took his new girlfriend, Christina Nolan, over to meet his family. At one point, Mark decided he would lay down and take a nap. He was awoken by his brother's fiance's son dangling a gerbil in his face. Mark became angry and started shouting at the boy. Dustin, Mark's brother, came to the child's defense. Mark and Dustin got into a violent fight. Dustin reportedly stabbed Mark, and in return, Mark shot Dustin to death. Mark and Christine then fled the scene, coming across June Ollinger. Mark shot her in the back of the head and disposed of her body off of an overpass, then proceeded to take her car and purse. Mark was able to get about 70 miles away when he realized police were looking for June's car. He then carjacked and killed Penny Gunnett. Mark had Christine drive June's car, directing her to follow him. She was not able to keep up and found it best that she turned herself in to police. While she was in custody, tree trimmers found the body of 71-year-old Betty Armstutz in the woods near Cumberland County. Like the other victims, she was shot with the same type of gun, and her car and purse were missing. Police traced her credit cards and were able to track Spotz to a nearby motel where he eventually turned himself in. Christine took a deal and pled guilty to criminal homicide. She was sentenced to 12 to 20 years for June's death and 6 to 30 years for Penny's. Christine testified against Mark, and she ended up serving 13 years total for her involvement. Mark acted as his own lawyer and attempted to pin everything on Christine, but failed and was given 3 death sentences. He has been sitting on death row since 1996. The 4th killer on our list is Adam Leroy Lane. Lane actually resided in Jonesville, North Carolina, but he was a truck driver who drove all over the Northeast. While driving his truck route, he would search for victims. He carried with him a DVD called Hunting Humans, which is a 2002 horror film about a serial killer who stalks his victims before killing them with a knife. He also carried 2 large hunting knives, choke wire, and a leather mask with the eyes and mouth cut out. He was in West Hanover Township, Pennsylvania, on July 13, 2007, when he came across Darlene Watt on her back patio around 2 a.m. talking on the phone. Lane slit her throat and stabbed her to death while her family was sleeping inside. On July 17th, Lane entered the home of Patricia Brooks in York County. She was asleep on the couch when he stabbed her 17 times before fleeing the scene. She survived. His 3rd victim was Monica Massaro of Bloomsbury, New Jersey. On July 29th, he cut her throat and proceeded to stab her in the head, neck, and chest. Sadly, she did not make it. On July 30th, a 15-year-old Shea McDonough was just getting home in time to make her midnight curfew. She left the back door of the house unlocked because her brother was not home yet and she did not want to lock him out. She woke up a few hours later to a man on top of her and a knife held against her throat. She instinctively kicked and screamed, waking her parents up. Both of them came to her aid. Her father wrestled the man down while her mother grabbed for the 15-inch long knife. Shea called the police. When they arrived, Shea's father had him in a chokehold. Lane's killing spree ended and he was taken into custody. Lane was sentenced to 25 to 30 years for the Massachusetts attack on Shea, 50 years for the murder of Monica in New Jersey, and in Pennsylvania he pleaded guilty. In order to avoid the death penalty, he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years for the attempted murder of Patricia in York County, and he received a life sentence for the murder of Diane in Hanover. It is rumored that he committed more crimes than what was discovered from the DNA found on the knives and other weapons in his truck, but none have been linked so far. Our fifth and final infamous Pennsylvania killer is George Banks. George was a state correctional officer who had a mental breakdown and went on a shooting rampage through Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania on September 25, 1982, taking the lives of 13 of his family members and ex-girlfriends. If you're interested in the full version of George's story and what he did and why, you can find that here. As always, please take care, stay safe, and thanks for listening.